Hi, I'm Tom Miggott from Tom Miggott Photography. A lot of you have requested tutorials on Photoshop, so I've been giving some thoughts, and today I will be covering the two main features of Photoshop. Those features are the one that you will rely all the time when you are in Photoshop, and they are the layers and the layer masks. So let's dive in. This is Photoshop CS6. This is the latest version of Photoshop at the time where I'm recording this, which is on the 17th of May 2013. For those of you who are not familiar with Photoshop, what we have is on the left side you have the tools such as the paintbrush, the cloning tool, the eraser, the blur tool, the text, and so on, and colors at the bottom. And on the right side you have different panels, and because we're going to be talking about layers, then we are going to have only one panel here, which is the layers panel, obviously. So what are layers? Well, I would say that working in Photoshop is pretty much like making a layer cake, where you would have a sponge layer base, then another layer on top of it with the cream, another layer of sponge on the top of it, and finally a layer of icing. And at the end, your result, your work is a cake, a layer cake. Well, in Photoshop, all your work will be pretty much made the same way, based on layers that will contain different information that all combined together will give you a masterpiece. So let's start. I go here in File and I create New, and do just a regular canvas of 800 pixel by 800 pixels, so a square. When you see that checker board appearance, it only means that this is a transparent layer or canvas. Here we can see I have my first layer here, and I'm going to duplicate this because I want 3 layers in total. So let me duplicate that. So I do a right click on it, I do it again, right click, duplicate layer. And now I have 3 layers. Now I'm going back to the bottom one, and let me call it red. Okay. Then the layer just above it, I'm going to call it yellow. And with a typo here. All right. And the top one, I'm going to call it blue. Okay. You might be guessing what I'm going to be doing now, but basically it's very simple. I'm going to go on the red one. I'm going to select a red color, like this, bring it to the foreground, my paintbrush, and I'm going to increase the size of my paintbrush just to go faster, and I'm painting all over the entire surface. Here we go. So my red layer, well, surprisingly, is entirely red now. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to my yellow layer. My yellow layer, as you may expect, I'm clicking on the color, and I'm going to use the yellow color. So now I have yellow color, and I'm going to start painting. Well, look at this. Am I painting over red? No, I'm not. Or yes, I am. Depends how you see it. Basically, I'm only painting on the yellow layer. But because the yellow layer is the same size as the red layer, when I go over it, it will cover, just like the cream does on top of the sponge base, it will cover the entire area. And in fact, let me just cover it the entire surface, and you see on the left side of your preview, of your layer preview, here there's an eye logo. If I click on this, this will deactivate the layer. So I click on this and I deactivated the yellow one, and I see the red, right? And if I do on the red, well, you don't see it because it's underneath the yellow. The whole yellow is covering, hiding the red. So whatever you do on the red now, well, you will not see it. So now I'm going on the blue, and you already know what I'm going to do. And you see, if I deactivate the yellow, and I see the red. If I deactivate the red, well, I only see the blue, which is totally transparent. So that's all I have. So now I'm painting over my blue layer as we did before with the other colors. Okay, so now I have my 3 layers, and I'm going to activate yellow, but you don't see it because the blue is covering yellow, and same with the red subsequently is being covered entirely. So you might be wondering, well, okay, that's great, Tom. We've got 3 layers, blue, yellow, and red. But because they're covering each other, then, you know, all it matters is the blue. Yes, it is. And you could switch the layer, right? If I click on the layer and drag it over the other one, it will go on top of it, you know, just like I do right now. The red, I can move it to the top. You don't see it because the yellow is on top, but if I move the red at the top, okay, so now you get it. It's only the top layer that you will see. But what if, what's the point of having the 3 layers, information of blue, information of yellow, information of red, if at the end all I see is red, right? Why would I bother having 3 layers? Well, that's where layer mask come into play, because layer mask define which zone within the selected layer, which zone you want to be transparent. And if the zone is transparent, then whatever is underneath it, the underneath layer, will be revealed. And that's where the whole power comes in. So I'm selecting my red layer here, and I'm going to do layer and layer mask, and I'm going to focus on reveal all option. We have 2 options here. Forget about the front transparency one, but we really have 2 options, reveal all and hide all. So let's do reveal. So when I do reveal now, you see it's still red, right? Nothing has changed, but you notice now I have a preview here of my layer mask. It is entirely white. And you'll notice also that on the left side, I have 2 colors now. I have white and black. And so the way it works is, because I chose the option of reveal all, let me just go back there. I chose the reveal all option, right? It means that my layer, my red layer, is revealed. And so now what I'm going to do is, if I select black and I start painting, right, like, let me reduce the size like this, and I start painting, I just do this. Then what I've done with my layer mask is defining which zone on my red layer is going to be transparent. So that dot is transparent. And I did not paint yellow, just so you guys know, because if I select my blue layer and I go on top of yellow, you now can see that it's blue, now that circle, that disk. So you see, that's how the layer mask works, and it's quite powerful. So if you remember, there was another option, which was layer mask, and hide all. So now if I do this, right, I've hidden completely my blue layer. In fact, if I deactivate my red one, all you see now is the blue, because I said the entire zone of my blue layer is transparent. And the way it works is, I'm going to select now the white color to reveal which part I want to be blue. So I'm going to increase the size, and I'm going to paint like this. I'm going to say that this part, half of my image, is going to be blue. Let's bring back the yellow. So, because I've only said, okay, my blue layer, I want it to be transparent. I keep it transparent on the left, but I want to keep the blue side of it on the right. That's what you see now. If I bring back the red one, then obviously what you will see is the yellow side, because it's on the left. But what if now I'm going back to my layer on the red, on my layer mask of my red layer, and I'm going to switch the color to black again, and I make another disk, like so. So now I see blue. Why? Because once again, if we go back to the blue layer, so I deactivate my red layer, you can see that I said that my blue layer here is visible, and on the left side it's not. It's transparent, and therefore subsequently showing my yellow color. So that's why you end up with this. So that's how it's really interesting. So now if I go back to my red layer, and I'm going to do this, and you can see I do that, it's really utilizing the 3 information. I have my yellow, I have some blue, I have some red, and I've been able to define which information of my red, blue, and yellow layers I want to keep. So you're going to tell me, okay, great, Tom, this is fantastic. Now I have understood what you meant about layers, what they are, and you basically use 3 layers, red, blue, and yellow, and layer mask as well, to define the zone for the information, but you end up with a smiley face. How is that applicable to my photography? Because I'm not somebody who's going to be drawing, I'm not a painter, so how's that going to apply to photography? Well, that's where going to show you now in an example. So I'm going now to Lightroom. What you see here is a picture that I've taken in 2007 using a bridge, an 8 megapixel bridge, and I quite like it. It was shot in the falls in November, and therefore you see the grey color, the orange tones of the trees. It's fantastic, and because it was shot as well during the golden hours, and if you don't know what the golden hours there are, then I'll invite you to watch this video. Here you've got the link now. That's why you've got this fantastic color on the brick, matching this orange tone of the trees. However, as much as I like that shot, what I really do not like is that boring sky. As you see, it's blue, it's dull, there's no clouds, it's boring. And that's the reason why I never published that image. And let me show you now another image that is interesting. This one. This is one of my published images that I've taken last year in Lithuania. And what you see there is, okay, there's the reflection part that obviously is playing a big role in that photograph. But look at the sky. Look how much information we have in the sky. We have those clouds, this movement, right? The rest of the scene is quite still, with the exception of the ripple here, but everything is still, and it's just the sky that is moving, and that's what makes this image compelling. Well, what if I could use the sky of my right image and put it behind my left one, right behind that tower? How would that be? Maybe that tower would not be so dull anymore, and I would potentially get a compelling image. Well, let's see if we can make this happen using what we just discussed. So I do a right click on this tower image, and I do edit in Photoshop CS6, right, from Lightroom, edit original. And now what it does is it's opening that document, and I'm going back to Lightroom, and I'm doing the same thing now for the other image with the sky. So right click, edit in Photoshop CS6, edit original, and here we go. So what I do now is I'm going to select on the top left here, there's the move tool, and I'm going to drag that image on top of the tab of my tower image, and I drop it. That pop-up tells me that the two documents have different depth, and that's from the fact that the tower was shot with an 8 megapixel bridge, whereas the other one was shot with a 60D 18 megapixel camera, and that's the reason why the resolution is different, and therefore the document size are different. So I'm just going to discard this and click yes. So now I have two layers. I have my tower and my sky. Every time I'm in Photoshop, and that's an advice that I can give you, is I always duplicate my background layer, because if anything happens, anything wrong within the changes that I make, the adjustment that I make, if I'm not happy with it, then I can delete all the other layers and come back to my original background layer and start from scratch all over again, right? I won't be losing information. So let's do this. Right click on the layer, duplicate layer like we've done in the past, and I'm going to call it tower, right? Although we can see the preview is very obvious, but I like to name my layers, just a good habit. And now I'm going to go on the top layer here, and I'm going to call it sky. So right click and sky. Here we go. So what I notice is that this sky here, it's quite big, right? And it's got some information of the tree and the grass, the water, and I don't want this when I will have my tower. Plus, the first thing that I want to do is I want to move my tower on top of the sky, like so, right? So let's go back now to the sky, and I hide the tower. If you see now, right, I'm gonna have a problem because, well, I don't have just sky on this one. I have, like I said, the water, the trees, and the grass. So I need somehow to get rid of those. So the way to do that is I select the sky here, and there's a great tool in Photoshop, and you go to edit, and it's called free transform. So you can, there's a shortcut which is Command T or Control T. So I click on this. And let me zoom out so you can see how big that image is. It's really, really big, right? And so now if I go on the edges and I'm dragging to the left until I don't see that tree anymore, like so, and I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom, right? Dragging that down. And you notice, okay, the image is being distorted, but it doesn't really matter because we're dealing with sky and clouds which do not have any real defined shape. So that works really well, and I'm just dragging it down like so. And I'm clicking enter or clicking the V logo here to check it. And that applies the transformation. Now I'm zooming back in. And I have a nice sky, which I could use in another image if I wanted to. We'll see. So now I bring back my tower. And I select that tower layer. So the first thing that I want to do now is define the zone that I want to keep in my image on top of my sky. I could use right now the layer mask and paint like we did before using the black and white color, but I'm not a good painter, and I want to do a nice job between the stones here and following the curve and the lines and the trees as well. So there's a fastest way to do that, and that is to rely on the tool in Photoshop that is called the quick selection tool right here on the left side. So if I click this, and it's really a really good tool, and Photoshop is doing an amazing job with this, is I go on the top of a stone right there, and I'm going to start dragging down. You can see it automatically detects the contrast, the contrasted pixel and the different, and it's very easy because the blue sky and the tower or the trees really have different tones, so it's really easy to find. And so here we go. And I'm going down, here you go, selecting, and like this, and I'm going here and all the way up to the tower, and it's selected the tower for me. Here notice very quickly there's a big zone here in blue that I do not want to have. One easy way to do that is you click Alt on your keyboard, and then you start clicking within the selection to remove what you don't want. So here I really don't want that blue part here. And I noticed there's a tiny blue part there as well. I could zoom in and try to do a better job. I'm just rushing here and just do like this. Okay, that will do for today. So now I have selected all the information that I want to keep once I have my sky. So as we did before, we're going to layer mask, and hide all. Okay, so I'll hide the whole thing, and because I hide my entire tower layer, all I see obviously is the layer underneath, and this is my sky. But the trick is I've made a selection just before, and that's where it's going to be fantastic. So now you see it's a hide all layer, so it's black here on the top on the right side, you can see it in preview. So I'm going to select the opposite color, which is white, and I'm going on my brush tool. Right, and now I'm going to increase the size of my brush, and I really don't care too much about being too gentle here because I've made a selection, so Photoshop will only apply my painting or within the selection and not outside of it. That's where it's important. And look at this, I'm painting on top of it quickly, and it reveals my tower, right? And if you look here on the right, you see the white bit. And so we could have done that using, stuff from scratch without using the selection tool, but you could imagine that would have been pretty difficult to do when going over here. If I zoom in at the top, looking at the stones and the peaks like this, it would have been a bit difficult and time consuming. So I went a bit faster here. Let me do select and deselect so we don't have that selection lines anymore. And this is what we get. So this is made very quickly, right? Because if you go, as much as a tower is looking nice, you can't really tell. That's doing a really good job there. Maybe there's a dot here. Let me show you. There's a dot right there. There's a bit too blue and definitely not part of that new sky layer. But as far as the rest is so right. Then when it goes to the tree here, it's a bit more complicated, and surely you would need to spend a bit more time and not rushing through like I did. But I bet you understood the point. In fact, here now, what we can do is, we're going to use the black layer. So let's use the black color, sorry. So I select black color, and I could paint over those extra bits that I missed within the selection. And I could even do it here. I'm not going to be saving that entire picture or going through the entire process because it would be time consuming, but you see what I get, right? And same thing you could do here, and maybe changing the opacity of the brush let's say to 20%, or no, let's go to 40%. That should do it, and maybe the flow, reduce it as well. And what it's going to do now, I'm going to keep painting, but basically it's just going to kind of merge the two. Maybe I should increase the opacity. I'm doing a bit too much more thing that I wanted to do, but basically you say here, all right, okay. So this is roughly done like this, and I can do it here very quickly. So now you understand how you can transform using layer mask. And one nice thing as well is when you are happy with the changes you made, you can select all the layers you want and merge them together. So let's do this. I selected them, so I selected one first and then the other with clicking on Control Command on the Mac, and then right click and I do merge layers. And so now I have two layers, and you can see the before and after. So if I deselect the tower one, let's look, this was before and this is now. This was before, this is now, and you can tell me really that result is much more compelling. That's what I had before, right? The sky really brings another dimension, and this is what you can achieve using layer mask. And you would not be able to do this with just Lightroom. You could try to paint the clouds, but like I said, I'm not a painter. I am only a photographer, so this is what Photoshop enables me to do. I've used two pictures of mine, so you know I've created magic out of things that I've created with my cameras, right? This is what Photoshop is all about. It's utilizing what you already have and combining and creating artistic, really nice piece of work. And this is all for today. So I hope you learned something and you found that interesting. And until next time, this is Tommy saying, if you like it, well, capture it and edit it maybe with Photoshop. Bye bye.